My name's Neil Holbrook and I'm an Associate Professor here at the University of Tasmania. I started here at the beginning of 2008, coming down from Sydney, and made a life in Tasmania, which is a wonderful place to be. And my research area primarily is in large-scale physical oceanography, and I focus primarily on the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean more recently. So if you look at this nice globe here, we've got Australia here. So the Pacific is this really, really big ocean over here, and the Indian is this smaller ocean over here. And the ocean, for me, is a fascinating place because it's 71% of the Earth's surface, and it's a perfect place to try and explore and understand things that is really at the forefront and cutting edge of research. It's a very interesting profession, and my main interest is in understanding the ocean's role in the climate system. So I do that from really trying to understand changes in the Indian and Pacific Ocean, but in the upper ocean part down to about 500 to 1,000 metres depth. And I think about things like the East Australian Current. If you have a look at this information sheet here, this is the marine network, which I'll talk about a bit in a moment. You can see this warm water comes down the east coast of Australia. I don't know if you can focus in on that. This warm water comes down the east coast of Australia, and on this particular globe here, it comes down here. And it's being part of this circulation coming from the eastern Pacific across the equatorial zone and down here, down the east coast of Australia. And one of the concerns under climate change is how that East Australian current is actually increasing in intensity over time. And there's some sense that perhaps this increase in intensity of the East Australian current over time is due to climate change and also ozone depletion, which we've heard about in the past. So one of the key challenges in research is to try and unravel why that East Australian current seems to be increasing in intensity. And what it's doing then is making warm water come further south into this southeast region here, and making it the warmest waters effectively in the southern hemisphere, 3 to 4 times the global average temperature change that we're experiencing now. The other things that I do is I'm very interested in year-to-year climate variability, a thing called El Niño Southern Oscillation. And I don't know whether you've heard about that, but that looks at year-to-year changes in rainfall patterns over Australia, and it affects over here in the eastern Pacific. It's been seen as collapses in the fishing industry, particularly the Peruvian anchoveta, at certain time in certain years. And that's a major climate variability mode, if you like, that people are really trying to understand better, and it's getting much better understood than it used to be. And then decadal variability is another thing. So how do you understand climate change above natural variations in the climate system? So year-to-year variability, like El Niño Southern Oscillation that I mentioned, decadal climate variability, and one of the I guess one of the key challenges is to try and separate out long-term climate change that might be due to human activities from this natural climate variability like El Niño Southern Oscillation and decadal variability. So I guess.
So what has been noticed about marine biology and stuff in the past 10 years, especially around Australia and Tasmania?
So in answer to your question, one of the key things that's been noticed fairly strongly has been changes in the distribution of fish species. And I guess the key element that I mentioned before is this change in the East Australian current that's coming down the east coast of Australia and bringing warm water, not only warm water further south, but also it's bringing saltier water, and it's also bringing low nutrient water. So there's some expectation that temperatures are changing, salinity is changing, and also the amount of productivity, if you like, primary productivity in the ocean's changing. And fish are able to swim, so fish have been swimming away if they don't like those type of conditions. And one of the things that has been established in the southeast region primarily for Tasmania here is a thing called Redmap. This is an initiative of Greta Petzel, essentially, and a group of people at the University of Tasmania through what was the old Tasmanian Aquaculture and Fisheries Institute, which is now part of IMAS, the Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies, to look at, in effect, changes in the distribution. Fishers out at sea can report sightings of fish species that they've seen which seem unusual. Take a photo, send it in, have it checked for its reliability, and then record it. And so now we've got this fantastic resource in effect, this range extension database and mapping project. You can get online and look at different species that have never actually been seen in this region of warm, really strong warming waters that's seen in the southeast.
And do you think things like this strong current, hot current moving down, are they related to climate change? Do you reckon they're caused by it?
There seems to be a relationship between the extension of the East Australian current and changes in ozone, so depletion of ozone, and also global warming, if you like. And the reason that those links have been drawn is essentially through climate models. So climate models are mathematical models, in effect, constructs of how the climate system works. And by putting in what we call greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide and so on, which are the things that humans are actually putting into the atmosphere, the climate changes in response to that. And what's seen in those climate models is that the change in the East Australian current in response to, in effect, human-induced climate changes synthetically represented in these climate models is consistent with the observations that are actually seen. So that's where our understanding of why climate change might be actually affecting this is being drawn from.